Good morning and welcome to episode 31 of the Isolation Podcast. I'm joined again by Juliana Christensen and Charlie Millwood. Good morning to you both.
Good morning. Feels weird not to say good evening.
Yes, very strange not to say good evening. A move of time to accommodate a very special guest. We're joined, as you can see if you're watching the video, if you can't see the audio, by current Aston Villa goalkeeper Tom Heaton. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, guys. I appreciate the accommodation with kids. Unfortunately, the day starts a lot earlier these days.
No, we appreciate your time. We're really grateful. So thank you very much for joining us.
No problem. Absolute pleasure.
So just for the listeners that might not be aware, we've been very fortunate that Tom's been able to come on through a contact through another guest. But a long story going back many years is that Tom and Juliana actually went to the same high school, which Juliana's pulled a few strings on in the past. So we're using that link again. So Tom, I guess, how did you first get into football? Obviously, whilst I was doing some digging on you, I read initially you played in goal and in midfield. So been all over the place. Were you always destined for Premier League, or are you one of those stories where I wasn't very good when I was young and then I got really good?
Good question. Really, I always loved it. I think it was always a passion of mine from a very, very young age. I remember, 6, 7 years old, playing as much football as I possibly could. Living in and around Chester, I played for the local club team, the school team, Sunday league team. As I got a little bit better, around 9, 10 years old, I was invited to train with Wrexham School of Excellence as a goalkeeper and an outfielder. So that's probably where my sort of journey starts along the sort of serious football ladder, really. And then it developed through that. I was fortunate enough at 11 years old, playing in as many teams as I possibly could still, even though I was at Wrexham. I was playing for the town team, Chester town team. We were playing in Manchester somewhere, Tameside, I think it was. I had a half-decent game and had a United scout there. And at 11 years old, I went for a trial and signed at Man United at 11 years old, which was like a dream. I still remember this day. My dad sitting me down after the trial, and it was a successful trial, so I signed that day. And he just said to me, it's nothing other than opportunity. Just make sure you give it everything you've got, because you don't want to look back and regret it. And I'll never forget those words. And it was something he echoed throughout my career, really. So that was the start point.
I guess when you were at United and sort of you never actually made a first team appearance in your time there. You were obviously around some seriously quality players at the time. Obviously, we were mid Fergie, early 2000s. United were winning virtually everything that there was to win, and obviously you couldn't get a first team game. Was it a good learning experience, but also very frustrating at the time?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think on reflection now, in hindsight, it was an incredible experience. In terms of a foundation for your own career, it was brilliant. Seeing how the best go about it, training with them day in, day out, learning off them. You have to raise your game at that level, otherwise you won't be there. That's as simple as that. Especially as a young goalkeeper coming into training, I was number 3 for a number of years, where that basically means I follow the team round. I was on the bench 25 times for the first team without making a competitive appearance. But I was training every day, doing a lot of the work with the centre forwards. I was getting involved in the small sided games, and at that level and that tempo, that competitiveness, you really have to raise your game. And for me, at 18, 19, 20, 21. It was a brilliant grounding, seeing how the best do it. Involved in the squad for the Champions League winning final in 2008. Again, an incredible experience. So yeah, in terms of I always say a foundation for my career. It couldn't have been any better, really. But at the same time, the double-edged sword is the fact that I knew that I wanted to be out there playing, being the number one, not a bit part player. And I knew that I was always building for that opportunity. Looking back, I wasn't ready for Manchester United. I wasn't ready to be the number one at Manchester United or play there. I can be honest and say that I needed to go and earn my stripes, learn on a practical level, and try and claw my way back there.
So obviously, as is sort of usual when you're not playing at a major club, you were sort of farmed out on loan to various places. I guess rather than drilling down too much, I've just got a couple of questions about obviously the loan to Royal Antwerp, which is sort of well known as a United connection and the loan to QPR, where Wikipedia suggests you didn't actually make a first team appearance at either club. So what was behind that?
The Royal Antwerp one was a tough experience for me, but at the same time, probably one of my best in terms of a moment in your life where it's a sort of turning point. I'd been at, I was let me think how old I was. I was 19, about to turn 20 when I was. I think I turned 20 when I was there. I'd been at Manchester United since I was 11 years old. I'd played for England in 16s, 17s, 18s. It was all going really smoothly. Sort of. You felt like your natural progression was to go and play for United's first team. I'd just been on loan at Swindon Town in League One, which went relatively well. I as a young goalkeeper, first league appearance under my belt and etc. I think I played 19 games at Swindon. So I went over there. Not with the sort of arrogance of youth a little bit. I wasn't arrogant but you had that sort of swagger, that little bit of bravado. I was a Manchester United goalkeeper and all in the path, and it just didn't work. Didn't happen for me. The goalkeeper over there was playing well. There was another goalkeeper who ended up sitting on the bench. So I wasn't even getting on the bench for the first team. I played a couple of reserve games that, let's just say the standard wasn't brilliant and it wasn't what my expectations were. And then all of a sudden, I let my standards slip. We were living out of a hotel, not eating properly. And there was a few other lads there as well at the time who some were playing, some weren't. But I let my standards slip. And it was 3, 4, 5 months where at the end of the season, it was a big turning point that I realised outside the sort of shiny worlds of Manchester United, the responsibility for my career relies on me. And I realised that I'd certainly have to keep my standards incredibly high if I wanted to have a career in the game.
So when you reached sort of 2010 and you decided that you were gonna leave Manchester United and head for pastures new in English football on a permanent basis, was that a hard decision to have with I assume the manager, like having invested all that time in sort of the training aspect and being around a huge club? Was it a big decision to obviously step down a couple of levels from sort of that very, very elite European level to sort of a more English level when you went back to Cardiff?
Yeah, good question. I think the honest answer is no. It wasn't that difficult. The dealing with it was difficult, but the actual decision itself wasn't a difficult decision. I think I'd been aware for a long time that I made reference earlier to clawing my way back. What I mean by that was getting back to the Premier League. I wanted to be playing in the Premier League as a goalkeeper, number one goalkeeper in the Premier League. And I realised that to do that, I had to go and improve. I had to go and learn. So at that point, I'd have probably left a little bit earlier, if I'm honest. We spoke about you mentioned the QPR loan spell. And I think I was there for 93 days, which was the maximum emergency loan. I actually played 2 cup games. So I played a couple of games. But, I think there was a possibility of signing there permanently maybe at the end of that season. But because I was under contract and United were offering me contracts, they would have required a decent level of compensation, which, because I didn't really have a good enough reputation to warrant clubs paying money for at that time, my hands were tied in terms of I had to keep signing. Not that it wasn't beneficial, but I'm just giving you a little bit of background. As soon as it came to 24, where I could walk out the door on a free under the Bosman rule, I knew that was the right time to go in. I'd had a great grounding. That was the right time to go, as I say, go and find my own journey, my own path, and see where I could get to.
For anyone who picked up the fire alarm now, I'm really sorry. I still live in student accommodation and they decide they're testing it every Tuesday morning. So someone's in testing. So if it goes off again, my apologies. Tom, so obviously you went from there back to Cardiff, where you'd spent some loan time and sort of managed to sort of nail down the first choice goalkeeping position and make it your own a little bit. Guess because David Marshall was injured at the time. But then when Malky Mackay came in, that position went back the other way. So was that sort of a bit of, you were back at square one? You'd left to try and obviously, like you said, become that Premier League goalkeeper. But having made the starter's job your own, you then promptly lost it again to someone else.
Yeah, in some ways, yeah, you're right. But I always felt like I was gearing up to get to that point. So yeah, the first season was good. It wasn't perfect at Cardiff, the first permanent one. The second season was frustrating on the one hand that David Marshall was played the league games. He played, I think, all but 2 league games, which I played when he was injured, and was magnificent, by the way, that season. The saving grace for me was I still took a lot out of that season, the fact that we went on a League Cup run all the way to the final and played your team, Liverpool, in the final, which you're probably...
I was just about to say I was at that final, so maybe I'm a bit glad you weren't in goal now. Yeah.
So I played in the final, so it was a brilliant moment for me, playing at Wembley, playing against Liverpool. That was a level I was aspiring to be at. So albeit I know I didn't play in the season and during the league, but I took an awful lot out of that season, culminating in that final. But at the end of that season, again, the motivation to play spurred me on to leave. There was an offer of a contract to stay, but I knew it wasn't right. I knew I needed to go and keep my progression of playing and learning at that practical level.
So you went to Bristol City on a 1-year deal, and by all accounts, the season the team had wasn't the best, and somehow, despite having sort of the worst defensive record in the league, which normally doesn't go down too well for goalkeepers, you were viewed widely as sort of one of the best players at the club. So what was that season like? Conceding 84 goals mustn't have been pleasant.
No, it was a tough season. I mean, I have strange. I was there for 1 season. I have very, very fond memories of Bristol City. I have to say, it's a fantastic football club, a fantastic place. It's a sleeping giant, really. Steve Lansdown and John Lansdown, they want success for place. They put a lot of money into it. It's a fantastic football club. I really enjoyed it. We were billed as challenging for sort of the playoff places. I think that season when I went in, it just didn't happen. In sport, the team just wouldn't work for us. I think we ended up finishing bottom by 10 points adrift of the next place. We conceded close to 100 goals. But for me personally, it was one of the first times that I'd played. I think I played 44 out of the 46 games that season, which was the most I'd played. Despite conceding a lot of goals and the team struggling, I was pleased with my performances. It was a good learning curve too. All the noise and distractions going on around you, the crowd not happy, players struggling for form, the team getting difficult, but making sure that you get your job right. Trying to influence us as best you can, but making sure that you stay focused, don't get distracted, don't spiral into negativity, just keep trying to get your performance right. So it was just another platform of learning for me.
So you turned down a year extension at Bristol City, and then sort of seemed to found home at Burnley, which is how the link to this interview came about. For those who've listened to our interview with Alistair Campbell, obviously Alistair Campbell is an avid Burnley fan, and was very accommodating in putting us in touch with Tom, and obviously Tom's duly come on and helped us out. So Burnley under Sean Dyche, sort of throwback football, back up here in the northwest, sort of probably far flung from living down in Bristol. What was it like there? Obviously, sort of over 150 appearances. You became everyone's fantasy Premier League selection of choice once you got promoted. Cheap and dependable. What was it like at Burnley?
It was. I think brilliant would be a fair description of it. From the moment I stepped through the door, it was an incredible spell of my career. Interestingly enough, I'd actually, prior to the signing at Bristol City, I'd actually signed for Watford that summer after Cardiff under Sean Dyche. Unfortunately, the club was getting taken over at the time. I'd signed on the dotted line, gone away to sort of celebrate it. There was a signature missing, but it was going to be sorted out in the coming days. That unfortunately didn't happen. Sean Dyche got sacked from Watford. He called me to apologise. He said, look, he's been lied to throughout. I didn't quite know where that left me in terms of my contract, but it materialised a week or two down the line that got ripped up. So that was an interesting story. He handled it very, very well under difficult circumstances. And then a year down the line, he came back in for me and signed me at Burnley. So you're always on to a good start when something like that's happened. I think I had a sort of a relationship prior to me even signing at Burnley, which was a good starting point. We went in there that first season. I'd be hard pressed to say if I've had a better season in football. We were third or fourth favourites to get relegated that season, and and managed to produce something magical to finish second in the Championship and get promoted to the Premier League. It was just incredible. With the budget we had and the expectation, it was a special season.
So obviously during that time at Burnley, you ended up with a goalkeeper and rival in Nick Pope, who's now sort of still the starter there. You having subsequently moved on last summer.
Yeah.
Was that element of competition towards the end of the spell? Did that make it more difficult? Sort of. Obviously, you had a good relationship with Sean Dyche, but weren't necessarily always playing. I know you were injured for a period, and Nick's been injured for a period as well. So there was time when you were sort of both first team, but then there was also a time when you spent some time on the bench as well.
Yeah, there was. I think the answer would probably be yes. I think when you're a sportsman or a footballer in your career, and you're very sort of self-driven. You know what you want. You know what you're after. Of course, you've got to have an understanding of a bigger picture. Unfortunately, I had a nasty shoulder injury in 2017. Which kept me out for most of the season. Popey came in, he did absolutely brilliant. He and I have a fantastic relationship even to this day. Still speak to him regularly. And then to add sort of more difficulty to it, there was a World Cup at the end of that season, so I was back fit for the last 6 or 7 games. He was playing incredibly well. And looking back now, it was the right decision to keep him in the team and keep me out of it. I'd be lying if I said I felt at the time I wanted to get back in the team. Nothing to do with Popey, just my own sort of drive to play. That was it really. That you sort of think about yourself and very intrinsic in your thinking. So yeah, that was difficult. It was a difficult period for me. Went away, was on standby for that England squad, which was a good achievement. Considering I kicked the ball on the back of a 9-month injury, which I was very, very grateful for. Came back in pre-season. Unfortunately, Popey got a similar injury to me, a nasty shoulder injury, just for coincidence. And I'd had a little niggle in my calf at the back end of pre-season, and the manager thought it was right to bring Joe in, Joe Hart. So it was a testing period. It was certainly a realignment for me in terms of what I wanted, and that was to play. And thankfully, 19 games into that season, literally halfway through the league, I got back in the team and played the rest of the season out, which was fantastic, really. And the response from the fans when I got in the team was incredible. I'll never forget that, especially that first game back, West Ham at home. And at that point, it felt right for me to start a fresh challenge. It just, the timing was right. It'd been 6 incredible years. Everything was, all the relationships were very good and still are, and it just felt the right time for me to take a fresh challenge and push the boundaries again of my own personal growth and development.
So when Villa came in for you, sort of you were looking, you were looking for something new somewhere else. So sort of wound up at what Charlie would definitely agree is the biggest club in the Midlands, especially in terms of attendance. If I don't say that, all my mates that live in Birmingham will absolutely crucify me. So we better stick down that line. What sort of, obviously you had your injury, I guess, in sort of a cruel twist of fate suffered in a win against your former club in Burnley. But what was the period of the season that you were fit for? What was that like? Obviously, sort of struggling towards the bottom of the table, but also producing some really, really good results through that.
Yeah, I think from the moment I walked through the door, I've been impressed by the football club. It's as you've already mentioned, it's a massive, massive football club. And of course I knew it's steeped in history. A successful history at that. I was aware that it was a big club, but I think I've been surprised and impressed by just how big and just how sort of well supported the football club is, and how they hold the history of the football club in the training ground, how much it means to people at the football club. It's been really, really impressive, that. So I've really enjoyed it. I signed at the back end of pre-season. I'd one pre-season game, which was the last pre-season game, and then got started, and it was brilliant. It was a brilliant 6 months. I enjoyed pulling the shirt on every single time. When you get promoted from the Championship, there's usually challenges. You know, it's a new level for a lot of players. Added into the mix, we had 13 new players at the football club, which is difficult, coming from different places in the world. And I thought we showed and have shown on plenty of occasions the quality we've got. I think the consistency has probably been a touch of an issue so far. And as I say, up to the point of January the 1st, in an ironic twist of fate, when I got injured, I was literally loving every single day. So yeah, that was personally, on a personal note, that was frustrating. But we're still right in the mix at the moment. You know, as we lie at the minute, I think we're 2 points from safety. 10 games to go. It's very tight down there, and I hold an awful lot of optimism for how the season will play out, if it plays out, of course.
Before we move on, just like to ask you a question, Tom. You know, what's your relationship been like with Dean Smith and John Terry? You know, what have they been like at the club since you've been there?
Yeah, really, really good. I obviously spoke to Dean on the phone a number of times prior to signing. You know, he's been brilliant, fantastic coach, fantastic ideas, and for me to go under a new manager with those ideas and different ideas, that brings you on as well. It was something new for me, a slightly different way of playing, of how he wants to do it, which was something I was after as well. You know, to try and keep getting better. As I say, that's important to me. So yeah, my relationship with him has been fantastic. You know, the senior management staff, JT, Richard O'Kelly, Neil Cutler, the goalkeeper coach. Obviously, he's the one that I work closely with. He's been absolutely magnificent. You know, his attention to detail, his passion for it every single day has been impressive. So that's been great. I feel like we're moving technically my goalkeeping forwards as well, and obviously Rich and JT. Yeah, they sort of back the manager up in terms of the ideas and take quite a lot of the training. So yeah, it's a real good senior management group, and yeah, I've really enjoyed playing for them.
So moving into this period of lockdown, Tom, I guess a question which will sort of round off the career aspect of our chat. Do you worry about sort of the lower? I mean, I know there's, like Charlie said before you joined the call, there's issues at the top level as well. But do you worry particularly about the lower levels of the football pyramid that don't have the ability to financially sustain themselves through long periods of not playing, who rely largely on gate receipts, specifically clubs like, you know, places like Swindon and even at the Championship level at sort of Bristol City that maybe rely on gate receipts a heck of a lot more than the likes of Liverpool in my case and Aston Villa in yours too.
Yeah, I think you know, having played at all four divisions in some way, shape or form, I think certainly lower down. I think it will affect everyone. You know, that there's no doubt about that. But I think the ratio of how much that affects teams will get stronger the lower you go down. Yeah, I think there's definitely a concern there. I think the biggest concern currently is the uncertainty. You know, there doesn't seem to be any understanding or definitives about when it will start again, when crowds will be back in. So it's very, very difficult for clubs to make any plans financially. You know, of course, everyone's taking a hit at the minute, but if you knew how long you were going to take a hit for financially, you could probably gear up some sort of system or plan to perhaps deal with that and work out what's required. But because of the uncertainty, you can't really do anything like that. So, yeah, I think at the minute there's it's worrying times. It's difficult for every single football club, but the lower down, it's going to be the pressure is going to be increased. You know, there's no two ways about it.
I think obviously we touched on the lockdown a little bit. There's been an initiative that's come about. I know Jordan Henderson, you know, has been in the eye for like kind of starting the organisation going with the Players Together initiative. Do you have any more kind of info about like how this came about and how kind of other players have reacted to it and how you've all got behind it?
Yeah, I think in honesty, it was very, very refreshing to be involved in it. I think at Aston Villa, obviously Jack's captain, James Chester sort of out on loan as one of the senior players. I was involved in dealing with it, and I think what I was really impressed with was the appetite and the care that every single captain or senior player that was on the group chat, and every club was represented that was in the group. The appetite for wanting to help, wanting to do positive things towards helping the NHS Together Fund, and it was really, really impressive. It's obviously not easy when you're trying to get so many people gathered up. It takes time. It gets time to organise. Everyone wanted to do it properly. But I think, certainly, as you mentioned, Jordan Henderson was a big part of that. There were a lot of other names in there, Premier League captains across the league that played a big part in it, and it was great to be involved in. I think when you get such a united front in Premier League football that everyone sort of looks to, it's a powerful message, and I think a fantastic cause and a worthy cause. And it probably, I would hope it shows the care that people have got. I think sometimes they can get tarred with a brush of, or we can get tarred with a brush of, perhaps not caring so much, but it actually couldn't be further from the truth. A lot of the work that people do in the communities, that people where they've come from and their upbringing and giving back, and it's big. And I think when everyone unites and does it together, it was impressive. And as I say, I was very, very proud to be part of that, actually.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that always amazes me, especially in a city like Liverpool. Obviously, you've got the two big rival clubs, but the work that all the players, regardless of what club they're from and whether they're from the city or not, like all get involved and help out with local initiatives. And I know that's something that's mirrored across the country, especially in the Premier League. And I think that is one of the really nice things about English football a lot of the time. Similar to the Players Together initiative then, do you think that in the same way they've come together to kind of to deal with the funding issue, do you think players would come together and kind of oppose restarting the football season if they didn't feel safe to play?
I think if they didn't feel safe, yes, I do. I think that the health and well-being aspect of this current crisis is paramount. I think that is the most important thing. Of course, everyone's missing football. The players are missing football. The money going out economically, it's vital that it gets started again. But I think all that comes underneath the safety and well-being of players, managers, people in the stadium working. Whatever it is, there's a lot goes into football matches, even if it was behind closed doors. So, yeah, I think that will certainly be the priority. I don't think we can cut corners in terms of the health and safety of anyone, really. Once we get to a point where it's where that's not being compromised, then I think everyone, of course, will be very, very motivated to get going again. But I don't think we can shortcut that.
I guess you mentioned before, Tom, about how people probably portray football as a little bit as robots that don't have any emotions and don't have any feeling a lot of the time. You see that week to week. People will say, well, what have they made that mistake for? Ultimately, you are just humans that are doing your best at something you're good at. So I guess question from that is sort of, does politics enter dressing room and conversation? Obviously, we had the general election in December, and there was some well-documented stuff around Players Together about the pressure that was seemingly being put on you in the public eye by Health Secretary Matt Hancock in accepting questions about footballers specifically and saying stuff along the lines of they should be donating your wages. Where what I'm aware from research is that Players Together was already well in the pipeline before that was even said. Like you said, the players were doing the right thing and were showing what you're all about, really. So does politics enter your dressing room, at Villa Park or at Bodymoor Heath?
It's an interesting question. I think just to deal with the Matt Hancock one first, I think in fairness to him, I'm right. I might be right in thinking he got asked a question about it. He responded at the time. Whether you agree or disagree, I think in fairness to him, he's having to answer questions on his feet. Never easy. It may well have got blown out of proportion a little bit. As I say, the Together Fund was already in place at that moment in time. I try to be empathetic to his situation. There's a lot on his shoulders at the minute and dealing with things. Tough job. So I'm not gonna sort of go down the road of shooting him down. He said what he feels and that, and I've got no issues with that. Whether you agree or not is a different matter, but I think that's his stance and fair enough. In terms of politics in football, it's not the biggest topic. I can be brutally honest there. But interestingly enough, general election time tends to get a fair bit of discussion. You know, as you might imagine, you get a group of people. Some are interested, some aren't. Some have an understanding, some don't. But it tends to get pretty heated when people fall on the opposite side of the fence. You know, it was quite interesting recently. You may or may not know that it tends to be at football training grounds that the physio rooms tend to be the debate room. You know, when lads are lying on beds getting treatment, the physios are in there, the doctors are in there, the masseurs are in there. There's usually a congregation of people, and it can get pretty heated usually between the big characters and falling on sides and that. And this year was no different. You know, your Corbyn versus Boris was an interesting one, and quite enjoyable this year. There's a lot of different sides of the coin.
Yeah, you obviously, we were talking about your injury before, and this was at the time of the suspension, really. So obviously now that when the season does hopefully restart, you'll be fit again. Hopefully, you could talk to us about your fitness levels. Is this a strange positive to come out of the situation? I suppose.
Yeah, I think looking what's going on around, it's difficult. You know, there's a lot of people in difficult circumstances. It would be difficult for me to. It would be incredibly selfish of me to come out and sort of say, you know, this is all working in my favour. And I'm certainly fully aware of the difficulties people are facing. You know, it's a terrible time. It's a terrible virus. It's creating a lot of difficulties. Economically, it's creating a lot of difficulties. So I'm very, very conscious of that. In terms of the delay, you know, no getting away from the fact that it does give me more time to get back fit. Depending when it starts again, I think I'd be doing well to be fit to play out the rest of the season. I think that's probably unlikely. I'm not sure if there's a registering issue now as well in terms of when I got injured, they deregistered me from the Premier League squad, whether that can be re-registered if I'm fit in time. It literally depends when it starts again, where I'm at in my rehab, where the registration is. If I'm honest, I'm not setting my sights on getting back fit for that. I'm just trying to take one day at a time. You know, the delayed period, you know, I'm 16 weeks on Thursday into my post sort of operation, which is 4 months, and I've only missed seven games, which is incredible, really. So I'm taking each day at a time. I have to say that the rehab's going really, really well. I'm really pleased with progress. It's coming on strong. And yeah, as the days get ticked off, the appetite for getting back playing, that hunger for getting back playing is you know, I can feel it coming. So yes, in a perfect world, would I be back playing when it starts? Yes. I think it's probably unlikely, but I'll be pushing to get back as soon as possibly can and see where that takes us.
Tom, obviously you've just said that you're not sure whether if there was a restart, you would actually be fit and able to play. So I guess in terms of this question, you might have to speak sort of on behalf of footballers more widely in your situation. Because I guess if you're a footballer sat at home now, you're doing what we all are, like climbing the walls to go back to work, back to university. So you're probably the same, just your job is football. So you're crawling the walls to get back on the training pitch and ultimately to get back to matches. But in Villa's situation, which is obviously precarious at the bottom of the Premier League, with the sort of the null and void argument that's flying around, well, let's just kill this season that we're 29 games into, and we'll start again. We'll start again with next season, which isn't very particularly favourable to Liverpool, but might be favourable to Villa. Would you, if you were Villa, well, you are Villa, is null and void more appetising?
No, I don't think so. In honesty, I think the only thing that will determine the void season and the playing again and when we play again will literally come down to the medical side of it, the health and safety side of it. Of course, everyone's going to play it out. You know, sporting integrity, finishing the season. Everyone wants to finish the season. As I've already said, we're incredibly optimistic about the last 10 games and finishing positively and finishing the right side of it. So there's no fear about that at all. You know, the decision won't be down to anyone at Aston Villa, you know, or anyone at Liverpool for that matter. I think it will be an incredible shame that if the season gets voided, but I think it will be out of anyone's hands. So it's just one of those things that we'll just have to deal with. On the other side of that, I think what's been brilliant at the football club is they're absolutely maximising what they can do in this time. Each player's got an individual programme. And what you often don't get in football is time, really. I know that sounds I know people think that football's go to work at 10 and they're home by 11:30. But in terms of when you're performing week in, week out, you often don't get time to make changes over a period of time. And this sort of 6-week period so far, and it's looking like it's going to extend on, has given an opportunity to stop, assess where people are at. The management have been on video calls with individuals, looking back at games, looking to improve things, across the board, really, physically, technically, tactically. They're looking to, when it starts up again, we're going to be in a better shape than we were when we finished. So, yeah, I think it's a difficult time, of course, but I think if you can utilise what you've got and the tools at your disposal, which the football club have been brilliant at, I have to say. I've been party to quite a lot of what's going on, even though I'm injured. And yeah, I think hopefully that can only benefit us as individuals and as a team by the time we go back. And those last 10 games, you'll see a better version, hopefully.
Just very quickly then, Tom, you just mentioned about having sort of individual player plans. Is that sort of a barrier to your recovery process? Because I imagine you're obviously struggling for sort of, I don't know whether you need physio appointments and that sort of thing, which unless your missus can do them for you, then you're struggling at home, aren't you, I guess?
Yeah, in fairness, I've been fortunate, really. I have a video call with the physio every day, so it's literally like a normal day for me. I've got plenty of equipment at home. I've literally probably got everything that I need, other than one big Alter G treadmill, which is like like running on the moon, which no one will have in the house. So I've got no issues with that, really. I've been fortunate in terms of the equipment I've got is more than sufficient for what I need. The physio, as I say, it's like a normal day. We're literally getting very pally with him on FaceTime. I've done a couple of video conference calls with the surgeon. I speak to the doctor sort of once, twice a week. So yeah, if I'm honest, we've probably maximised the situation. As I say, I don't feel like I've lost anything with not being able to go to the training ground. I've made sure that I'm doing everything, and probably more than I would do if I was back at the training ground, just because I'm at the house all day. You sort of want to do something, you get to that point where you need to do something different. So that certainly hasn't been an issue, and yeah, we've made the most of what we've got.
I suppose going back to the null and void argument before, so I was reading yesterday, Gabby Ekbomlehor, Aston Villa, I suppose the legend now, he was there for that long, retired at Aston Villa last year. He's basically saying that obviously we're going to be playing games probably behind closed doors when the season does start again. Do you think there's an issue of, we have our last 5 games out the 10 at home, so is this going to be an issue with we have 42,000 there, big crowd, helping the team out, and we're not if we don't have that, I think we'll be at a disadvantage? Yes,
I think we will. I don't think we probably can get away with that. As I've already mentioned, I've been incredibly impressed with the support, the noise that comes out of Villa Park, and the crowd getting behind the team has been tough for any team to come and play against us. We've been a different animal at home. All of a sudden, you take that away. There's a sporting integrity issue there. Is it fair? Are we losing something by not having them? But I think it'll be an interesting debate. Whether it comes down to either finishing it or you're playing behind closed doors. You probably end up finishing it. You probably end up playing behind closed doors for the reason of getting it played, even if it probably leaves us at a disadvantage. But it's certainly a factor. The crowd at Villa Park. It can't be easy for anyone to come to. One of my first game, it was impressive. The first win under the lights, the noise and the atmosphere. I think it was Everton at home, the 1-0.
Yeah, I remember
just absolutely incredible. My dad still speaks about it now. He was in the crowd and couldn't believe the noise generated, the atmosphere. It was unbelievable. So we'll be losing something. Yes, we will. Which is difficult when you've got, is it 6 of the last 10 at home? I think something like that, 5 or 6.
5 or 6, yeah.
Which is a massive advantage for us, especially the situation we're in. So I think it'll have to be looked at by the authorities, but it'll be an interesting one.
Yeah.
I guess moving away from that, then, just as a final little question before we let you go back. Are you dabbling in a bit of school teaching at the moment? You running a home classroom?
Yeah, trying to. If I'm being brutally honest, my wife takes most of it. She's got a bit more patience than I have. I'm running the activities centre outside.
PE.
yeah, a little bit of PE. He does the Joe Wicks in the morning, and sort of in the afternoon, especially because the weather's been so nice. We've been, been a little bit of football with him, riding his bike, a little bit of tennis in the garden. All sorts of stuff really, just to sort of get him doing different things. So that's fallen on me rather than the actual maths and English, which I'm grateful for. And
I guess then just. For you then, more personally, how are you keeping your spirits up during this uncertain time? What are you doing to make obviously you're looking after your physical health through all your physio and stuff. How are you looking after your mental health, keep making sure you're keeping your spirits up?
It's a good question. I think keeping the routine for me has been important. I'm still doing the as you say, the physical work, which keeps me happy because I feel like I'm making progress with my injury, which has been great. Spending a lot of time with the family. The two boys. I've got a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old, and a wife, of course, and that's been brilliant. Don't get the consistent time usually, so that's been fantastic. On top of that, I've done quite a lot of reading. We're going on sort of bigger walks than we normally would have. So we're just trying to make sure we maximise those things. And that's so far kept me sane.
Very much. Thank you very much, Tom, for joining us today. Obviously, an incredibly special guest to have on episode 31. And when we started out, it seems like moons ago, but it was probably only 5 weeks making this podcast as part of the final year degree. I didn't think it would sort of reach the heights of speaking to a Premier League goalkeeper. I mean, it could have been Alisson, but Tom Heaton the last two. Tom, we're eternally grateful for joining us, and I'm not just saying that because not many people from what I've seen have had access to speak to someone in the Premier League about the situation. So you coming to talk to us has sort of opened our eyes, and hopefully the people that come and listen to the podcast will also get a really good insight into not just your career but sort of your personal life and Aston Villa at this moment in time. So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for listening, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening, as ever, to all the listeners. Continue to get involved, and there's more episodes coming, although I can't promise as good a guest as we've had today. Thank you.